first member of the Kappa Sigma Mortgage Mafia to join us on the It's Not Over Yet podcast, Jason Gordon. Gordon and I have a really fun and wide-ranging conversation that shows him coming off the mean streets of Venice to San Diego State as a starry-eyed 18-year-old freshman destined to play soccer, but then he found the fraternity life and weaved his way over there, rose through the house in various leadership capacities, eventually as GM, tell some fun stories along the way about life in the frat house and the pranks that can go on there, and also a neat one about how he came up with the idea for a fall counterpart to Mango Bango, and I'm kind of bummed I missed that one when it was up and running. He even goes all top rope sentimental and gets your hosts here a little backed up. And then we find out what his dream concert would be. And you know anything about Gordo, or if you spend any time at concerts with him, that's not going to be a real big shocker to you. So it was a lot of fun. And Jason's a great guy. Appreciate his time sitting down with me. And I hope you enjoy this conversation with Jason Gordon. Welcome back. Another episode here of It's Not Over Yet. I have none other than Jason Gordon, joining us here today. My man, happy Friday. Thanks for making the time. I appreciate it. How's it going in general? What's up with you?
Well, happy Friday to you as well. And thanks for having me, man. Honestly, I love the idea. I love the concept. There are so many bros who I just can't wait to hear from on this platform. Thanks for allowing me in and, allowing me in kind of the ground floor. So that's pretty cool.
Well, I appreciate that. You're kind of like one of the perfect guests to start with, because you are in I think the minds of a lot of people, a really good bridge between these two eras that this whole thing is trying to cover. You came along in the later 80s and then, rose into a leadership role, which we'll get into. And then you toggled into the early 90s and carried that momentum forward there. And you looked at, for us, you were one of the younger guys, but for them, you were one of the leaders. So I think that's you got a great story to tell in terms of that. But before we get to that, let's get to the nitty gritty stuff, the third SIGs element of the show. I need full name, hometown, pledge class, big bro, little bros, and any offices held.
Okay. See if I'll try to remember all those things. Jason Elliott Gordon, that's 2 L's and 2 T's if you're keeping score. Hometown, Venice, as in LA Venice, not Italy Venice. Big bro is Daniel Franklin Sager, the one and the only. Little bros, Rob Hopkins, Matt Scheel. Offices held, Rush Chair, Grand Scribe, Grand Master, and I don't know what I've been called on this alumni sort of postgraduate involvement, but we'll just say I'm alumni leadership affiliated. We'll call it that.
What about pledge class?
Oh, how did I forget that? Spring 89, ΒΡΑΤΣ. I apologize. My pledge bros. I should have been more confident with that name. Yes.
Okay. ΒΡATS
yes,
were
Spring 89.
Sure. Where were you in your life when you first hit campus at SDSU? Like, how old were you? Would you come in as a freshman, or where were you in your life at that point?
So I was a fresh 18 years old, turned 18 2 months before I packed my truck from LA and went up to San Diego, or down to San Diego. At that time, really into soccer. I tried out for San Diego State University soccer team, which is very humbling. You think you're a big fish in a small pond, but you go to a big pond and realize just what a little guppy you are at that. So yeah, that was rough, but had a pretty serious girlfriend, I thought, when I left. When I got to San Diego State, I got there a few weeks early because of the soccer tryouts. And I'll never forget this. I was at Aztec in between our 2-a-day practices and tryouts. I went over to Aztec Center and I'm just kind of, resting before round 2 of that day and playing soccer in 100-degree heat. And I'm at the bulletin board and I hear all these, I'm just kind of killing time looking at all the ads and the bulletin board. There's no one around. Then I hear all these women's voices. And I look up and hundreds of very attractive women my age and above were walking. It was sorority rush. And I had no idea. And I remember just like smiling, hi. And I thought, I'm never going to be the same here. That girlfriend, we'll see what that's going to work out, but I mean, 18 years old, lots going on. But yeah, that was quite the welcome me to San Diego.
And did you rush right away, or did you wait a semester or a year?
I waited till spring. I had a chance to kind of live the dorm life a little bit and get an idea of sort of which fraternities had the reputation for what. And yeah, Kappa Sig was the way I saw it. There were certain ones that were just like the ones you wanted to hate. I'm sure we all know who those are. You had the athlete ones, the athlete in mixed diversity, and Kappa Sig was in that list of the mixed diversity athletes and just cool guys that threw good parties, and it was pretty. It was Kappa Sig or bust for me.
Right on. Who kept you coming back? Like, Rush at that time was a week long, right?
Yeah.
Was there any one or two guys that you remember significantly for the ones that called you, followed up, made sure you kept coming back, made sure you got the bid, made sure you took the bid? Were any of those guys stand out at that point that you remember?
We're going back decades here, my friend, but I can think of one person at Rush that I really just thought was just cool guy. It was Steve Bertone. I remember to this day, we were talking about Andrew Dice Clay, and I had just seen this guy live in Hollywood. And when Bertone heard that I had seen Dice, I mean, his whole face, if you know Bertone, he's very excitable. And you saw Dice, and he's grabbing bros. Dude, you just saw Dice Clay. It just felt like, all right, these are guys I could totally hang with for sure.
That was on a pretty heavy repeat at the house at that time. That whole stand-up routine from him and everybody quoting it all the time was on a pretty heavy repeat all the time.
All those nursery rhymes, let me tell you.
Did you rush any other house? Did you get a bid anywhere else and consider taking anywhere else?
No, it was Kappa Sig or bust. And I knew that's where I wanted to be.
And how did your relationship or intro to Dan Sager come about? How did he get to be your big bro?
I'll be honest, I had never met the guy before. And then they're telling me my big bro is like, who? Have I met him yet? And, I might have met him. I'm like, this guy's cool, but I don't recall any introduction to him. I just think it was one of those things where it was selected and it just happened. But cool guy, real cool guy.
Um, Time wise, you came into the house at when we were at like a really big trajectory. Our popularity was on the rise. We had, with Faulkner and Richie and AS, and we're doing all these things and doing really well in sports and stuff like that. What was your perception of us as a pledge at that point in terms of that, and where you thought we fit into the bigger picture?
I was in awe. I mean, I just idolized a lot of these guys, and I felt kind of like, dude, you shouldn't put people on a pedestal, but they're just to walk in from, a high school of 2,000 people to a college of 38,000 people. And then this fraternity had over 100 guys, give or take, on any given, event. And I'm getting to know these guys, and each one's making their own impression on me. I'm like, I would just be honored to be part of these guys. And it was just, it was each day I was just meeting a handful of guys and having respect for them in different ways. And, initially I just wanted to be part of it. And I wasn't fully aware initially that, remember, this is a spring pledge class. I wasn't aware at the time that, about 30 guys were about to graduate 6 months later and disappear. And that was brutal to find out along the way as a pledge. Like, wait, all these guys are going to be gone? Like I taught us, hey, we're going to have to step up, and keep this thing going. Yeah, we lost a lot of good guys at the end of that semester.
Yeah. Um, did you going through a pledge? Did you kind of right away see the opportunity as to be involved in the leadership of the house and to learn those skills? Was that something that was prevalent right away, or something you kind of grew into or fell into?
I've got to say, each of those positions I mentioned earlier have their own kind of story of what led me to go there. Um, but it was more of just the overall theme was I saw a need. I felt I could help. And my thought was, if you're going to do this, go all in and do it right. Don't half-ass it. And each of those, I felt like I went all in on. And, it was funny because as a scribe, I mean, I was, we're all real young. And at the time, 4 of the 5 EC positions were occupied by our pledge class. It was John Van Johnson was the GM, and a bunch of brats in all the other 4 positions. And we just accepted the fact that we were going to lead. We ignored the fact that we were young, and we said, we're just going to do this. And we all just jumped in and did it. And it really wasn't that hard when you're all committed. And then it's led to seeing other voids. I'd been exposed to a rush that we had, and I'm not going to throw names out there. Everyone does their own thing, but I was just really kind of disgusted with how the rush chairman handled the rush. I just thought it was a very kind of half-ass effort, and we didn't have a very large pledge class as a result. And I remember, at that point, just going, hey, you think you can do better? Then do it. Don't talk about it. Just do it. And I remember just running for rush chair, and we went all in. We got a great pledge class. I mean, some of these guys I hung out with just a few weeks ago in the desert, 30 years later, but great guys. And then with GM, and I'll stop babbling here, but I had no desire to be GM. I got thrown into it. In fact, at one of the meetings, a couple of the guys who really wanted me to be the next GM got up at the meeting during Bro of the Week and said, I nominate Gordo to be as Bro of the Week because he's agreed to run for GM. And it put me on the spot totally. These guys gave me a standing ovation. And I was like, careful what you ask for, guy. Like, I don't know if I'm like, okay, sit down. Like, I remember I was like, I wasn't expecting this. And I realized at that point, it was already set in motion. I might as well embrace it and go at it the best I could. And I love that I did it, but that was how I actually got into GM. There's no campaigning. It was like, we want you to be GM and do it and do a good job.
Sometimes people choose leadership. Sometimes leadership chooses people, right? Like,
amen, brother.
You were the guy at the place at the time, and that's how it rose. That's fascinating. When you look back on it, we talk a lot about this it factor that this era, this time period, all seems to get. Not everybody, obviously, 100% of that, but certainly a big chunk of guys that came through there got it, still get it, practice it today. For you, what's that it? What do you think that it is? That's that connective tissue for all of us that didn't seem to catch on with other eras before and after us?
Well, I think it's a tough one to answer. I think for me, anything that's really worth having is not easily acquired, right? So it wasn't this, the rush process wasn't easy. You had to kind of earn your spot there. These guys weren't just giving away bids. The pledging process, I mean, we have a million stories we can conjure up from the pledge years, but, or the time I was a pledge, but it was a series of barriers to entry that made the inevitable entry that much more powerful. Like, wow, we've accomplished this. And I know this is going to be on YouTube, so I'm not going to give away things about our ritual, but man, just that moment where you knew you'd crossed that 12th gate. Done it, man. And the euphoria that came with that. And then having my first formal chapter meeting and just seeing how that operated and seeing these same guys that were, a week earlier, tapping the keg and going crazy and doing all these social things. These guys all suited up in ritual mode, 3-hour meetings that went by like that. And just the way these guys interacted, disseminated, collaborated, sometimes, agitated, right? But it was one of those things where I'm like, I am so impressed with this. And this is absolutely worth preserving. And, kind of one of those things where you just kind of quietly pledge to yourself, I'm going to do everything I can to keep this thing going.
That's a great point. And I've always looked at that the same way, that we were somehow able to be this ragtag, just completely sometimes off the hinges group of guys, and yet maintained such civility and put such reverence in these other parts of the chapter operation, that and it was great to have that dichotomy, because I think that really underscored the individuals that we chose to be there. They weren't this homogenous group of guys that, you go down the street to the Beta House or whatever, and everybody's in brown khakis and a white shirt and a blue and gray striped tie and everything else. We
So
didn't have
true.
that. We didn't look for that. The guys we had were not that way, and I think that's a really great way to sum it up. And the fact that you were able to see that and identify that and know that, man, we've got to carry that forward and be able to, keep this going. That this is what's important. We got to be able to keep that going. I think that's great.
Yeah. I love the diversity too. I just love
Yeah,
the cultural and we weren't a bunch of clones,
yeah.
and we didn't act like we were clones. And yet with even all those extra variables, we made it work. So there's something about the commonality, the ritual, the core that kept us together, those two magical chrome letters on the front of the fraternity house. I mean, it allowed everyone, don't change who you are, be who you are. We're accepting you. We brought you in as who you are, contribute to this. And it was just awesome. And again, I was 18 years old. I mean,
Right.
like, overwhelmed.
This whole world is just exploding in front of you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Other than your period as a GM, did you live in the chapter house?
Yeah. 3 different semesters.
Okay. How would you,
Yeah.
just somebody that's an outsider, how would you describe what it's like to live in the house?
It's kind of like camping with a roof over you. Uh,
Complete
just
with
with the
rodents and
smell,
bugs and
with this, I mean, I'll give you an idea. Dating myself, obviously. This is back when we had answering machines, right? The little thing on your coffee table, and I remember bringing that and a few other things back to my parents' house in LA, and my dad called me. My dad doesn't get mad at me often. He was heated. I guess he looked down and saw something going on with my answering machine, opened up the lid, and a whole bunch of roaches just came out and flooded his whole house. And dude wasn't happy. And I'm like, yeah, well, that was when I lived across from the bathroom, sharing the wall with the kitchen. So what could possibly go wrong in that place? But yeah, it was always an adventure living there, and always just crazy the night after or morning after a party, the sights and smells, and, that you would just be exposed to. It was
mornings
brutal,
after
but it was so fun.
those Saturday or Sunday or sometimes Thursday mornings after were always some of the best, almost sometimes better than the party itself, right? Because you're sitting in a small group of dudes passing stories around, passing other things around, discussing what happened. I thought those were
Witnessing
some
the
of the
walk of
most,
shame at least once or twice.
yeah, going down the hall in a t-shirt and on their way out.
Who's that? Which door did she just come out?
One of
Oh, the
the,
day.
and if you remember, fine. If you don't, one of the it depends on which end of it you were. Fun things about living in the house were any pranks that might have got pulled on you or you pulled on somebody else. Anything jump to mind that something like that you remember that was uh, relevant or kind of stands out?
Gosh, that might come to me at some point. I
Yeah,
know we did a lot of pranks to people. I'm going through a filter now about what I can actually say out loud on some of these things.
do we have to
But
name any names, or you can name names if you want to? We're not trying to call anybody out here.
well, I know something we used to do to certain guys in the fraternity house. We were able to tie a rope around their doorknob and prevent them from being able to get out of their room, and force them to have to go out their window. And
Good fire
I know
safety.
that's not the best prank, but that was something that was just very common. Especially middle of a party when that guy can't get out of his own room to go join the party, and that kind of thing. But I'll give that some thought.
Okay.
There's definitely pranks. Oh, well, I'll give you one that I guess it could be a prank. Myself and a pledge bro of mine were kidnapped from study hours. And this is the night that our pledge dad, Will, had a special pledge event for us at midnight that night. And we were at study hours in the library getting our stuff done. And, in between the books of the library, a couple J's from hell, I think it was Donnelly and Carney, kind of go, grab me and a guy named Troy that used to be a pledge bro of mine. And next thing you know, we're being told, don't tell anybody you're leaving, grab your stuff and follow us. We're watching you. And we end up getting kidnapped, if you want to call it that, taken to some other bro's house. To this day, I don't know whose house it was. About 15 guys were in there, just piled in, and just ready to tee off on Troy and I remember this was the perfect, is it hazing? No, it's not hazing because of how it was phrased moment, but they pull out this bottle of tequila unopened and someone says, all right, we're not going to force you to drink this bottle of tequila because that would be hazing, but it would be a good gesture on your part to drink with the bros of Kappa Sigma. And as I'm kind of pondering what's being said, Troy grabs the bottle and literally just starts chugging it like it was Gatorade, and I'm like, oh my God, of course, everyone's cheering him on. He hands it to me and I have to do the same. And that bottle disappeared very quickly.
Right. Quick.
And again, 18 years old. And, to this day, I couldn't drink that much tequila if I tried.
Yeah.
So
Over the course of a year.
you want to call that a prank, or you want to call it whatever. And then, of course, we had to reemerge to meet our pledge bros who had been looking for us. This is before cell phones, so no one knew where we were. And they were all worried and angry. And we're going to miss Will's event. We have to go there as a group. And, of course, we walk in escorted by all those bros that had kidnapped us. And we were not exactly white-eyed. We were pretty
Blurry.
pretty hammered. And Will, who, didn't know at the time some of his things that had gone on with his life lead up to, but the way he yelled at me, he was in my face screaming. He had tears in his eyes, his veins in his forehead. He's turning purple. And I'm like, this guy really actually hates me right now. Like what did I do wrong? I remember just being so thrown off by it. So yeah, that was just a day in the life of being a pledge.
Yeah. Good. Take it for what it is. We were known for a lot of things at that time. Certainly we were on the rise in sports. We had won sports banner a couple times and things like that. I always thought too, one of our better strengths, if you will, was we were a very good party house. But we did it in a very unique style. When you think about everything from the TGs, tailgates to Mango Bango, that sort of thing, what stands out in your mind there? Do you have any core memories of just sitting back at a party and just looking at everything and just wondering how it all got to this point or anything like that? Or what sort of things stick out in your mind from that element of your experience as an undergrad?
Well, so Mango Bango was always the best party of the year, no matter what semester it was. It was always in the fall and it was just the best. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It was in the spring. Excuse me. When I was GM, I just, I was a fall semester GM, so that you're installed, but then you have summer before the fall semester happens. And I had gone to Cancun with a real good friend of mine and ended up being my best man, several years later. And he was managing bands at the time. And him and I are on the balcony of our hotel in Cancun. I'm about to go out that night. And I said, we're not leaving this. I said, you manage bands, and I'm president of the fraternity that throws the best parties on campus. We're not leaving this balcony until we plan the party. We had a bottle of Bacardi, and we just sat there and just brainstormed. And this one band was a 2-man rap band called Rebels Side 7. And they had this song. I had it on a cassette tape demo. It was a song called Psychedelic Jungle. It was a cool song. And I said, hey, you get those guys to come out. We'll put them upstairs, let them perform like, concert style in the chapter room. We'll get Lord Dewey Chapin to DJ in the pit. And here's what we'll do. Psychedelic Jungle. We're going to have outside like Mango Bango, palm fronds, tiki torches, you name it. Inside, lasers, black lights, all this kind of stuff. And it's going to be Psychedelic Jungle. And the more we planned this, the more we got excited. And I said, hey, let's take it a step further. Let's have our own VIP crew that gets to have a pre-party before all the general population comes in. We did this progressive party. Every room in the chapter house had a different crazy drink. And we marketed it perfectly. And we were all, at least at the time when I was GM, with respect to those sorority ladies who may hear this, it wasn't interested in the fraternity sorority dynamic. I was interested in, let's throw good parties with good people. You guys vouch for these people you're inviting. You are responsible for their behavior. Bring good people together and let's just have a great party. So we had this whole VIP before the general population came in, and the party was epic. I mean, it was just was Mango Bango, everything you want Mango Bango to be, but it was in the fall semester. We had created this, and it just felt good. And that we put this together on a balcony in Cancun, and it executed it perfectly. And it went on for several years.
I love that. That's great.
So much fun.
Let's talk now a little bit about kind of life after Kappa Sig. You graduate. What was your first job out of college?
So first job out of college was actually a job I had in college. Everyone I lived with I don't know if you remember Debbie Drive. I lived with Ralph and four girls. It was like Three's Company times two. But they were all in the restaurant business, and I remember just thinking, I feel like I should be building my resume right now, and I have no desire to own a restaurant. So getting a job at a restaurant didn't make a lot of sense. So I got a job at this little mom and pop shop called Wells Fargo Bank. You may have heard of it. Bank teller, and just steadily, got promoted to normal teller, merchant teller, new accounts. And then when I graduated, it was like this natural, hey, now you have a bachelor's. Now we're going to advance you within the company. So I was at Wells for about 7 years and general banking, and finally made the choice to, specialize in one of those banking elements and chose mortgage. But yeah, it was just a natural progression from college.
You're the first of what I'm calling the mortgage mafia that's come out of EI that we've had a chance to talk to. And you've now had what, 30 plus years in that industry one way or another, and have built a really great career. A lot to be proud of. What would you say that you took from the chapter, lessons, mindset, what have you, that you best utilized in the early parts of your career that helped you be successful?
With respect to that question, I think what I took was things I learned well before San Diego State. I had grandpas on both sides of the family that were just real big on, if people can't look you in the eye, shake your hand, and trust you, you are nobody. And, be known as the person people can trust. Do what you say you're going to do it right, treat people right, don't burn bridges. And all those sort of lessons from these two men I just had um, such respect for, really molded that. If I was to incorporate that in with, decades later fraternity, and then bringing that over to the workforce, um, it was really just the same way I emerged into the fraternity as just this sole person emerging into this group. I was now emerging into the workforce, into, again, Wells Fargo Bank, not exactly a small place. I was joking about the mom and pop shop part, but you walk into a branch, you are part of a team, you are part of a region, and you start knowing how to interact. You don't burn bridges, and you cultivate and enhance relationships along the way. And I think a lot of that I can trace back to the fraternity is just, meeting people for the first time, making an impression, getting to know them, building rapport, and building off of that over time.
Yeah. We come across a lot of very unique personalities in our time in the chapter. Did anybody stand out to you as someone that initially didn't really like or get along with or understand, but as time went by, you came to appreciate them a little better, or maybe get to know them a little better, and understand what they're about, and like them a little bit more?
Oh my goodness. The name that came to mind went away when you said, did I learn to like them? So, one guy would have like, okay, bro, like we're just never going to be like, and that's okay. There's 100 of us, and just you and I can just coexist. But, I will say the guys that wanted to kind of yell at you when you were a pledge, and then the minute you're initiated, be your best buddy. It took me a little while to warm up to that. All right. So for the last 6 months, you were just calling me all these names, screaming at me, demoralizing me, and now suddenly we're like BFFs. Not quite.
Now I got to bro down with you. Yeah.
Yeah, but there were certain people that were, I said, were hard on me, but in a tactful way that really made me think that, hey, they're being hard on me for a reason. Like a parent would be like, hey, I'm doing this because I see more in you that can come out in a certain way. And I think those are the ones that there's a few. In fact, there's one in mind. I'll just say it. Cisneros, man. That guy would look at me with this disappointment when I was a pledge.
He does have that disappointment look on him sometimes, doesn't he?
I mean, he knows how to make you feel like you have just said the wrong thing in the wrong moment. Fast forward, one of my favorite bros, bar none. You know what I mean? But it's just like he didn't have to yell at me. He didn't have to call me names. He would just look at me like, I don't know, man. Not sure you're gonna make it through. I'll see what I can do. We're meeting this Monday. Just I may have to come to your dorm and tell you some bad news. I'll see how it's going to be. He would just do that, just to mess with me. But it worked. And of course, those are the ones that you kind of hug a little bit longer when you get initiated. Like, dude, yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
We had a lot of cool trips. That time we were going out of town for formals and things like that. Any of those stand out as being like super memorable for any odd reason? The date you had, the time you had, the place you went, or anything like that? The story behind why you got locked out of your hotel room and were in your Superman underwear or anything like that?
I don't have Superman underwear. I can definitely tell you that. How could you not bring up the Kappa Sigma River trip in spring break,
Yes,
sponsored
sir.
by your old boys, the Long Beach State Theta Beta chapter, 100 kegs in a refrigerated beer truck over a 3-4 day period.
With a dance floor,
Um,
with a illuminated dance floor.
yeah, and just bros and their lady friends from all over different chapters across California, and that was hard to not really really enjoy. I mean, that was fantastic. I would say San Felipe those years um, were pretty amazing. For all of us except for Mr. Brown, who had a whole different experience at Felipe.
Ooh.
Thank God he's okay. Um, you know, I mean, how many Vegas trips do we go on? And the formals, yeah. The I will say one of those trips, one of those formals from Kappa Sig in Vegas. I drove my salvage title truck with a camper shell with no air conditioning to Vegas. I'm driving back, and my date and I weren't speaking, and I had another bro and his girlfriend, in the back camper shell. So I'm in this little tiny front cabin driving this truck in terribly bad heat, hungover, traffic in the middle of the desert. She and I aren't talking. I'm thinking to myself the whole time, do I have to even give her a hug goodbye when I get to her house and drop her off, or are we just really that done? And having time to reflect. Who do you want to be in this moment? And it was odd because of all those thoughts in my mind. One of those thoughts was, you're back on the market, dude, because this ain't working anymore. And you're in a school where there's a lot of good looking dudes who are competing with you for these women. What are you going to do to make yourself better? And I just had this determination. By the time I got home, I decided I was going to join a gym. No kidding. The subsequent, that's right, at the end of spring semester, the formal. By the time we all reunited in the fall semester, I'd put on 20 pounds of muscle. I'd worked out daily, my pledge bro Caruso, and um, transformed everything, all because of that Vegas trip, that moment where you're like, all right, you're in a fork in the road here, man. Who are you going to be right now? You just going to be, you're going to cry in your soup, or you're going to do something about it. And that was a huge game changer right there.
Did Caruso get bulked up too? Because he's a scrawny little shit right now.
Ah, that dude used to work out pretty hard. I remember, and if you know Caruso, I remember I was at the gym once with him, and I see somebody I know. I'm over there talking to him, and Caruso with his, stern face, come here. He's like, are you here to work out your mouth or your body? I'm like, but that's Caruso for you. I'm like, all right, never
Yeah.
again, bro. I really
That's
maybe
yeah.
just,
That's vintage
we're
Joe
all
right there.
business. But you got pretty large. I mean, that guy's still in good shape,
No,
you
he's in
know?
great shape. A great golfer
Yeah.
too. I mentioned at the top of the show, you're a bridge between kind of these two different eras. I know too that you also have a core group of guys that you stay very close with that you grew up with. I'm similar to that. I have a group of guys like that. Um, do those guys understand this relationship, and do they look at it kind of the same, or do they see, they kind of maybe mock the difference or mock the association that you have with us versus them in terms of that close knit nature? And I know everything about you, and we pick up right where we left off every time we get together, sort of thing.
Yeah. So this crew you're speaking of is my crew in LA that I grew up with. Some of us were friends as we're 5, 6 years old, played sports together, went to school, went to camp, you name it. And we all stayed friends. And we turned 18. Oh, by the way, we call ourselves the Heads.
The Heads, okay.
And that came from the Beastie Boys song, The New Style. Beastie Boys are the biggest heads. Oh, and that was our identity when we were teenagers at Venice High School. And we turn 18, we all go away to different colleges, San Diego, Northern California, Arizona. A couple months later for Thanksgiving, we all just kind of come back for the first time from our colleges, where my buddy Eric's parents' garage with a keg and just sitting there reminiscing and reflecting and catching up. Hey, how's Arizona? How's Northern California? How's San Diego? And in that moment, somewhere, we all just kind of had this epiphany that we all had met people the last 2 months in our new dorm life or wherever we were, and nobody had what we had in LA. Nobody had what the Heads were. And we all just kind of like, whoa, this is something really worth maintaining. It's going to take effort to maintain because we're living in different places. We have to really work at this. But we all just had this moment of consciousness and said, let's preserve this thing. And you know me enough to know that, no surprise, I was one of the catalysts to kind of keep us together, whether it's organizing events, road trips. We even had this thing, I would do this, what called the holiday headlines. And I would put together this laminated photo gallery before we had all these fancy computers. And I would literally take photos with double-sided tape and pop them on there, put them on a color printer. And, we just kept it going. But to this day, I mean, the Heads are very strong. We hang a lot. And I think that was I could take a lot from that crew to maybe understand how I embraced Kappa Sig so much, especially when I had that similar epiphany that this is something also worth keeping together and cherishing. And it takes work. It's so easy to just not answer your phone, sit on the couch and be a recluse. It takes a lot more effort to get out there and keep things going and keep relationships strong.
One thing for sure about you is you're a gamer. If there's a concert to be had, if there's a tailgate, if there's a hoops game, some other event, dude, you show up. You show up every time, and you're present, and you are giving it your all with that. You were recently at an event, a group of guys from the '90s called Shred Fest, and you go every year
Yeah.
with that crew. Um, what's that about? Who's involved with that? Why is that so important? That sounds like, not so much analogous, but on par with what we do with the fantasy football leagues every fall. We all get together, and it's not so much the football draft is important. We're there to hang out, and that's the real time that you're there to do. What's up with Shredfest?
So ironically enough, this is led by a gentleman named, or brother named Evan Patrick, who was one of the pledges that we brought in when I was rush chair. And that whole crew, Scott Stevens, Jacob Pringle. I mean, I won't start saying names because I'll forget guys, but these guys are all just still real tight together. And Evan is, he's got that it factor where he puts things together. He puts events together. And he put together Shredfest, which is, used to be on Big Bear Mountain. And it was like this whole scavenger hunt, well, not scavenger, but competition of events like foosball and darts and beer pong. And you had single elimination, and these are brackets, and you'd see who win, and the winner got certain amount of points. And in the end, you saw who had the most points, and they are the Shredfest champion. First couple of years at Big Bear, we would actually do the downhill mountain biking. I think we all kind of realized, yeah, we're a little too old for this, you know what? And there
Wearing
was one time
halos and
where
stuff like that isn't very attractive. Yeah.
well, it was hysterical. We actually had in Big Bear, ironically enough, one of the bros was in a reggae band, and they were playing in this club in Big Bear the weekend we were at Shredfest. So of course we just had what is called a very elevated evening. That and the next morning we're supposed to do the mountain biking. I'm trying to wake everybody up. Come on, let's go. And everyone's looking at me like, "Are you crazy? We will die right now. We can't even open our eyes. You want us to go down that big hill on a bike with very little brakes, and you're a victim of physics at this point. You're going down that fast and gravity and all that kind of stuff." And remember at one point getting that epiphany that yeah, we're not doing the mountain biking anymore. Yeah, this is a good time to stop while we can all kind of walk away with memories. But yeah, but that's another event that's just worth maintaining. I almost couldn't make it this year because just some personal challenges with my family and some of their health issues. But was able to make it for half of Shred Fest last week, and it's phenomenal. We're in the desert doing off roading, and again, kind of pushing the envelope a little bit for all these middle-aged men, but we got it done, and it was a lot of fun.
That's great. I think traditions like that are so important, and the fact that we can keep groups together like that is it's just so critical for the longevity of everything we're about. So that's awesome that I want Evan. I'm coming for you. Where you're going to get Evan will be a guest on here soon enough. We got to get those guys start working their way into sitting down with us and talking about what they got going on. But I'm really that's
All
so
right, if you need some help getting him over there, I'll give you a hand. He's a good dude, and I won't steal his fire, but just make sure if you get him on, you make sure you ask him about his bachelor party
all right.
and how he made it the most epic Vegas trip I've ever been on. I've been to Vegas well over 100 times, and his bachelor party stands out. But I'll let him explain why.
Okay, I'll tell him I was told to ask by you. Um,
Absolutely.
my man, you've been great, and I I appreciate the time. The closing segment of our show is stare into the flame. And normally I would have 5 questions, symbolic number 5. For you, I've got 6 because they're kind of important. You ready?
Okay.
All
Sure.
right. What was your go-to order at Los Panchos?
I would get the 5 roll tacos with no sour cream, and I would just tolerate the purple guacamole.
Okay. Was kind of the guacamole was a little off
It
color
was
across
purple.
the
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
Not
pretty
even sure
sure
it was
all except the
guacamole.
one, it's purple every time. Yeah.
Um, right across the street. Which house in Greek Circle did you hate the most?
She was a virgin in her freshman year. She was a virgin in her sophomore year. You know the song I'm singing?
Pretty universal answer there.
SAE.
They made it
Yes.
easy. They made it easy to hate
I'll
them.
tell you, we sang that song to them in Greek week on the beach while playing beach volleyball, and that was almost the biggest fraternity brawl.
This
I
fight
mean,
ever, yeah.
you ever really listen to that song and play it for an SAE or sing it to them? I mean, we go deep into their ritual, and we hurt them pretty badly. And that was yeah. So love and respect. One of my best buddies is the SAE from Santa Barbara. I'm like, sorry, bro, love you, but Bernie, man, you're easy to hate.
All right, here we go. Which bro or which active was the biggest dick to you while you were a pledge?
Do I have to choose one?
No, throw them out.
Camano, Webster, and Pittman.
Okay. That's a triumvirate there that is pretty powerful, There might be a Mount Rushmore. Throw one more in there, in terms of the
yeah, that is definitely its own separate mountain.
memorable
right there,
dudes ever to roam the halls there. That's a triumvirate of extreme power. Which bro was the best or biggest mentor or supporter of you while you were a pledge?
I'm not sure if you've met this guy before, but his name is Jim Miller. Yeah, in fact, he might be on this podcast right now. Dude, you were by far, you're a pledge mom, a pledge educator, and you did such a good mentor along the way. You walk the walk, and yeah, man, huge respect. I've said that for years to anyone to listen to me. Like, you got your own Mount Rushmore, but yeah, you were by far, especially the role you played for our pledge class, by far the number one and only number one answer for sure.
Bro, thank you. That it means a lot. Thank you. That's rad. a good way to kind of wrap up the week. Well, question 5, if you could have your 2-band dream concert, full sets by both bands, who would it be?
Metallica easily comes to mind as number one. It's funny, earlier today I was exposing my wife to more and more Metallica, and she's putting up a fight, but we're getting there. The second one, Zeppelin. I wish I could have been a little bit, just could have turned back time and seen them at their height. Yeah. That would be the ultimate.
Could you imagine that show? My God. Woo. All right,
I could definitely imagine.
This could be this may be the toughest one of them all. Tommy Lasorda or Dave Roberts?
Tommy Lasorda. That's easy. Come on, Tommy.
Go back and listen to that tape of him talking about Kurt Bavakla, right? Go back and listen to that old tape of him talking about Kurt Bavakla.
If anyone has never heard that, go treat yourself to that on YouTube. If you can spell Kurt, just try to spell Bavakla. But yeah, that rant is epic. I love Tommy.
You're great at what you do, and you can benefit people in a lot of ways. How can people, they got mortgage needs, they want to talk about whatever they need to get their mortgage world set and on where it should be? How can they get a hold of you? Where can they find you?
They can go to my e-card, which is vipborrower.com. It's essentially a landing page with a bunch of hyperlinks. I put that together just to help people who are referred to me sort of drink me in, if you want to call it that. If you were to Google Jason Gordon, I think a lot of other Jason Gordons pop up. So I put that together just as a way. So if somebody wanted to really do a deep dive, there's links to my Yelp page. Very few mortgage people have their own Yelp page. So that's another level of accountability. If you know Yelp, you can't censor that. So if someone wants to trash you for whatever reason, they will. And knock on wood, it's still the 5-star rating, which is cool. Yeah, man. The mortgage industry it's a trip. I'll throw this out there. I'll be real quick. I'm not going to do a big commercial, but you can help by those who want to get a mortgage, home buyers, homeowners who need financing, and of course the conduits who find those people, real estate agents, financial professionals. And as you know, I've got a niche in helping divorcing parties, which is a whole just different Pandora's box, but I work with a lot of divorce attorneys and mediators across the country and help their clients ascertain whether one of them can keep the home amidst divorce and buy out the departing spouse. So it's kind of a passion project for me. It's not a huge money maker because it take a lot longer to get these loans done, but man, I feel like I'm really helping people out at a time they really need help the most. So
right on. That's super important. You're helping them out. You're helping us out by being the great bro, great person you are. And it's a real honor to have you considered a brother. And I look to you for a lot of things, and you feel the need every time, bro. Thanks for sitting down with us and chatting it up. Okay, we're gonna have you back in a future episode. We got ideas about doing like a GM roundtable, guys that used to be GM, or maybe we'll do a Rush chairman roundtable and talk about all the wacky things that happened at Rush and stuff like that. But for sure, we'll catch up again in person here real soon, I hope. Okay.
You let me know, man. AKDB, love and respect my brothers.
Right on, Gordo. Thanks, man.
All right, brother. Take care.
It's Not Over Yet is a production of EYB Enterprises. This episode of It's Not Over Yet has been brought to you by Monique. The host of It's Not Over Yet is Jim Miller. Executive producers, David Cisneros, Mike Gonzalez, and William McCormick. Check back for future episodes or like and follow the platform you're listening to it on to be notified of every time we drop a new episode of It's Not Over Yet.